May we have your attention, please?
The Covid-19 pandemic has had a dramatic effect on all of us for the last year. While many have been confined to working from home, others have had to continue to work and to travel on the railway. RSSB has been working behind the scenes to see what can be done to protect those people. Horizon scanning, looking at and understanding what's coming, is one of the ways in which RSSB has and continues to help the industry understand how to protect people. Today I'm talking to Claire Shooter, our Senior Horizon Scanning Specialist at RSSB. Claire, welcome to the RSSB podcast. Please would you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us how you got to your current role with the railway?
Thanks, Ant. Absolutely. So RSSB is the first place that I've worked in rail. I started here in 2016, working in a more analytical role with some horizon scanning, but in the last couple of years, I've moved into doing horizon scanning full time. Before I joined rail, I was actually a biomedical scientist. And in 2016, I just finished my PhD in molecular diagnostics when I came across the work that RSSB did in rail. And I found that I was really attracted to it for the same reasons that I was as biology, in that it was looking at cool, interesting new technical solutions to things that could benefit people, basically. So that's how I ended up here. With the pandemic, I've really had a reason to now use my old biology skills in my new role as a horizon scanner.
Thank you very much. So you've mentioned the term horizon scanning. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about that would make it clearer to both me and our listeners?
Yes, absolutely. Horizon scanning, it can sound like quite a nebulous thing, and there's a lot of different definitions of it out there. At RSSB, we like to describe horizon scanning as the systematic examination of potential future problems, threats, opportunities, and likely future developments, including those at the margins of current thinking and planning. So horizon scanning can explore novel and unexpected issues, as well as persistent problems, trends, and weak signals of things that we believe will continue to impact rail in ways that we need to anticipate. The RSSB Horizon Scanning team's remit is to provide this capability for the GB rail sector through our own internal work and also through coordination with other relevant organisations. Through this, we provide information and engagement on future-orientated issues to help the sector enhance its situational awareness and strategic thinking, and contributes to processes of service development and innovation and organisational learning. And this year, as you alluded to, we've really been applying this to helping the industry understand the pandemic with our biosafety horizon scanning programme.
Thank you very much, Claire. We've recently come to a new stage in the pandemic situation in that there is a vaccination programme in place and there are planned stages to reduce lockdown. That means more people will start to travel again and return to the railway. Your Horizon Scanner, can you tell us what uncertainties COVID-19 still holds for the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're entering a transitional period now, which is going to be very interesting and present its own rolling different challenges. The number of people who are vulnerable to COVID or immune from COVID-19 is going to change dramatically over this period, but it's not immediately going to snap from one to another. We're going to go through a lot of different states with lots of different proportions of the population being in one of those two groups and then moving into the other. So that means that over the next 6 to 12 months, rail is going to find itself dealing with a whole host of different states of changing risk and changing perceptions of those risks among both its staff and its passengers. So, for example, some people will be really eager to go back to work and back to travelling. Others might be very hesitant. A lot of people won't understand that the vaccine doesn't mean that everyone is completely safe yet, and they might find it quite hard to keep up with the evolution of which risk-reducing measures like social distancing are still necessary at particular points. So rail has the challenge in understanding and meeting the needs of all those different groups of people and keeping them safe in this time. On top of those uncertainties that are very directly related to the vaccine itself, in this period, there's also going to be uncertainty coming from the extent to which restrictions are going to be lifted and when that happens. The government's laid out a roadmap for this, but it's dependent on certain conditions being met. So rail needs to be prepared for subsequent changes in travel, which may or may not happen at certain points. Finally, another of the major sources of uncertainty right now is about the disease itself. This is entirely new to science, And there's a lot of questions about it that are not yet answered, but we probably will get answers to over the next 12 months about, for instance, the level of immunity you get from the vaccine and what new variants might arise and how they might impact how it works. So when we get those answers, we'll need to be ready to act on them. And until we do have that information, we need to keep reminding ourselves that what we are working on, because we do need to continue to work during that time, is we need to acknowledge that what we're working on is logical hypotheses, but not always necessarily completely known science. So what's the best decision one week might be superseded by new findings that should evolve how we handle the pandemic. And that's going to be something that we constantly have to do.
Thank you, Claire. It sounds like it's going to be an ongoing and very dynamic task for you. How is Horizon Scanning going to help us spot these trends, and what will we do with that information?
The way that Horizon Scanning works is a 3-stage process. There's an information gathering phase. All of these are going on all the time. There's an information gathering phase where we identify information that's going to be pertinent to all the questions that we have that are significant for rail and significant in understanding the pandemic. We then go through a systematic process of collecting the information that we think provides the best sources of up-to-date knowledge on that information. We turn this into a participatory process. So it's not just me reading the British Medical Journal on my laptop. It's me talking to people in industry, presenting them with analysis of how this is relevant to issues that they're currently experiencing. So that's things like research and reports, some workshops about particular questions, about particular scenarios moving forward that we might expect to encounter and things like that. So although we often work with a horizon of 5 or 10 years ahead in Horizon Scanning for a lot of the problems we've been concerned with previously, our definition of now basically and the future has got a lot shorter in the pandemic. What's happening in the future at some points in this year has meant what's happening next week or next month. We've really changed our focus in light of that to how we can keep people safe and how we can keep what rail is doing up to date. And that's really focused on understanding the transmission, treatment and testing of the virus, understanding what the latest developments and how it's mutating, and especially the vaccine rollout process. So we've supported lots of industry groups this year. We've helped them make informed decisions about sanitization, about testing strategies for staff, and how to model the risk of transmission in rail environments, as well as how the rollout will affect rail in the coming months. As the situation evolves, we will continue to use Horizon Scanning to understand how we can continue to protect staff and passengers through all the different stages that rail and the wider community will experience in 2021 and beyond.
Thank you, Claire. That sounds like a very comprehensive programme involving a lot of people from across the industry. So, one final question. How do we deal with uncertainty when we're trying to plan for the next 3 months?
That's a really good question. So one of the most important things, and also one of the most difficult things to do, is simply acknowledging that uncertainty is there. People really don't like uncertainty. And a lot of us have this perception that because you can't control it, because you can't pin it down, you can't do anything about it. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of easier to ignore it. In the case of COVID, that's particularly true because it's such a novel situation. We're dealing with a brand new disease we don't fully understand yet. It's hard for us to know who is infected and what the risk will be for them. We don't really know what sort of immunity we can expect from the vaccines and things like that. And particularly in rail, people are having to make plans for something in a field that could be completely unfamiliar to them with incomplete information and information that is constantly changing as we learn more about the virus. So there are things you can do about uncertainty. You can identify where the impacts from possible futures out there will be most significant for you. You can create contingency plans for different future scenarios. A really important thing to do is to identify the areas and questions which are really important to your business and keep an active focus on making sure that your knowledge there is right up to speed. At the same time, you have to remember that those issues that you're particularly focused on are part of a far wider problem. So the pandemic's affected every aspect of human life, really. So you have to be aware that the things that you're focused on are connected to a really wide web of other things, and take a step back and look at how those are going to impact the things that impact you. New developments in all sorts of fields will influence what's going on, and you need to understand those to update your understanding of what's going on. For Horizon scanners, uncertainty is what we're trained to deal with, whether it's about the pandemic or the environment or technology or customer demand. So we're in the process of developing new projects around COVID and biosafety to help rail get through this period, as well as looking at the resilience of the sector in the post-COVID environment for considering the future resilience of rail to other potential public health emergencies. What I would really encourage people to do is face those uncertainties which are keeping them up at night, and also acknowledge that there are probably just as many impactful uncertainties that they haven't even considered yet that should also be keeping them up at night. They need to acknowledge that those are there, invest some time into thinking about how to manage those things. And if they need a hand, what they should absolutely do is call the RSSB Horizon Scanning team and get some advice on what issues they should be thinking about and how they should be thinking about them.
Claire, thank you very much for that. It seems that we have, if not a solution, at least some guidance on how to approach what we might consider to be unforeseen scenarios, and that planning for the future, even if it doesn't happen, is certainly going to help us. I hope this has given our listeners something to think about and, to some extent, reassured them that we are on top of the situation as best as anybody can be. To my listeners, thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions about this or any other of our podcasts, please email me at podcasts@rssb.co.uk. In the meantime, thank you once again, Claire, and goodbye.